Hello, everyone. Pastor Tommy McMurtry back again with the Spirit of Liberty for Men. And today we're going to jump right into the subject. Not going to try to keep you too long today, but one that's very important, one that is a problem for specifically men. I think we struggle in this area. I know ladies can struggle too with this, but it is a more common thing among men, and that is just anger issues. And we're going to talk about some anger management today, because anger is something that it just gets people in trouble a lot. And if we do not watch out for this, if we do not take care of some of these things that cause it, we're just going to have a lot of problems. A lot of people's individual problems they deal with, maybe relationship problems, marriage problems, problems with their friends. It's because they've got an anger problem. And if you have an anger problem, there's a lot of side effects that come with it that I don't think anyone wants. And, there is no, when it comes to, specifically anger issues with men, there's no one size fits all. Everybody's got different things that cause them to struggle. But I will say this, that I think people who have, who regularly struggle with anger, who are known for being angry people, who have a lot of big problems because of anger, I don't believe that most of the time it's because of a circumstance. Now, there are often circumstances that kind of trigger the anger that's in us, that we kind of blame for these things. But, at the same time, though, you can have other people who have similar circumstances and they're dealing with things just fine. So it's not really about the circumstance. It's many times it's a deeper issue, and I want to talk about some of these things, and then we're going to, we've got several scriptures I want to look at, but I want to start off looking at Ephesians 4:26, where it says, "Be ye angry and sin not. Let not the sun go down upon your wrath, neither give place to the devil." It's not right to teach that all anger is sin, because it isn't. There are some things that absolutely should make us angry. And it seems like today, a lot of what people are trying to promote to help men get over their anger issues is just more stuff, just kind of taking away the masculinity of man, putting them on meds. That's not the solution. That's not how we want to fix these problems. We need to, we can maintain our manhood and yet, still get our anger under control. But while we do have a verse in the Bible that shows that not all anger is a sin, we do need to understand that the reason it had to say be angry and sin not is because we are very likely to sin when we're angry. It says in James 1:20, "For the wrath of man worketh not the righteousness of God." I believe we are capable of doing righteous even in a state of anger. However, our flesh is not going to be leading us to things that are not sinful. You can still walk in the Spirit, while dealing with some righteous indignation on something. But the wrath of man, what you are feeling at that moment, chances are what your flesh is wanting to do is probably a sin and probably wrong. So we've got to understand this is a dangerous thing. It's not, some people act like all anger is bad. I disagree with that. I think something's wrong with you if some things do not make you angry. But I do think all anger can be very dangerous. And so even when you are anxious for a good cause, you got to be careful so you don't get yourself in trouble. So a few things that I want to talk about before we get into more scripture on this subject is that I do think when people do face anger and when people are struggling with anger, a lot of times anger, it's not about the circumstance, but it's a side effect of something else that's wrong with a person. And often, instead of fixing what's wrong, it's like we take a pill to fix a side effect of something that's wrong. And that's kind of how we do things in our society today. Anytime something's wrong, everybody wants to just take some kind of pill, where maybe we should find out what's wrong. Instead of just taking something for your pain all the time, why don't you find out why you are in pain and then see if you can fix that so you won't be in pain? I'm not saying you can never take an Advil or an aspirin or something. I take them sometimes. But usually, if I'm dealing with a headache, if I'm dealing with some kind of pain, it's because I have something wrong. And if it's something that can be fixed, I need to fix it. And I don't want to be content with just, well, I can take this pill and it'll make the pain go away. No, if the problem's still there, the pain's going to come back, and eventually I'm going to have side effects from all these pain medications that I'm taking. And so we live in a society where we want an instant solution for everything. And as a result of that, we're allowing a lot of things in our life that are really creating bigger problems. So just, a few things that I think we need to consider. If you are struggling with anger, these are typically things that could be causing the anger. Okay, not necessarily the circumstances, but for example, a lot of times health problems. When you're in pain, you typically don't act, the way you do when you're feeling good. We get crabby when we're not feeling good, when you're sick. It's kind of a normal thing with all of us. And everybody responds to different things differently, whether it be pain, sickness, or whatever. Some people are just big crybabies, some people are just rage monsters or whatever. We all react differently, but sometimes people have health problems that's causing them to feel that way. Well, you know what? Get it fixed. Get whatever you've got that's getting you aggravated and agitated, fix it. And it's like a lot of guys, they feel like we can just never go to the doctor for anything. We just can't go to the chiropractor. We can never take medicine for anything. We've just got to endure everything. And, you might be able to endure the pain. You might be able to endure some of these things, but you got to understand you're making yourself a very unpleasant person in the meantime, because you're not dealing with these things. You're not fixing the problem. And so if you have a health problem, if you're having some kind of physical pain, fix it. Take care of it. It's okay to do that. That might help a lot. Another thing too, it could be side effects from like a bad diet or something like that. Often, and I don't know much about this. In fact, I want to kind of put this out there. I'm looking for recommendations. I would like to talk with somebody who knows a little bit about, diet, nutrition, and all that kind of stuff. That's not a weirdo. All right. Preferably somebody that's not a weirdo, and just talk about like different food and things like that and how it affects men. You hear all these things about all the soy and how it's causing men to be effeminate and all that kind of stuff. I'd like to know how much of that's true. You hear about them putting things in water bottles that's making men more effeminate. I don't know. Maybe these are just conspiracy theories? I don't know. I do know men are becoming very, very effeminate, and it's disturbing. Something's causing it. Is it too much soy? I don't know. I'd be interested in talking with somebody who knows a little bit about this subject. But I do know, when with some people, when their diet gets out of whack and things, it kind of messes them up. Because maybe they have different health problems and digestive issues and things going on internally, and when they get out of whack, it affects their moods and things. So stuff like that you need to think about. Caffeine affects people in different ways. Some people are way too addicted to it. There's not only is there the stuff even just with food that can cause that kind of thing, but even especially when it comes to things like drugs, alcohol, medications. And there's a lot of men today who they are, if you're messing with alcohol, that kind of stuff's going to affect your moods. That's going to affect a lot of things in your body. If you're doing drugs, and I'm not an expert on these things, but I've read enough, I've heard enough on these things to know that, you start messing with drugs, it's going to mess with your mind. You're not going to have as much control as you should have, and you're going to just kind of be at the mercy of, whatever your body's doing that day, in reaction to whatever it is that you're taking or the lack of it. And so this is another reason we should always do everything we can to avoid all drugs, alcohol, and even medication. And again, I am not against medication. If you need medicine, take it, but be careful with it, because there's no doubt that doctors are just getting kickbacks for these pills and things that they're pushing on people, and there's side effects that come with them. Read what the side effects are of these things, and instead of just being content with the fact I can take a pill and this pain goes away, say, no, I want to fix whatever is causing this pain. And so, diet, things like that, they affect moods. Somebody just said in the chat, young people don't exercise anymore, go outside. You need to get sunlight. That's true too. We're very cooped up inside. That kind of thing has side effects. We're living, when you are a man, we are meant to be out there working, doing things physically. We're meant to sweat. And I get it in a lot of jobs. And I talked about this in one of the earlier programs. We're not necessarily required to sweat to survive today because we've got a lot of things with technology. We're able to keep things comfortable. A lot of people are working with their brains more than they are with their body. And there's nothing wrong with that. But if that's you, you need to get out there and do some work. I think that was on a live stream I did with Pastor James Johnson. I'd recommend going and listening to that one. But, that's something a lot of preachers deal with. It's not a physical job. There's a lot of mental stuff and emotional stuff that you have to deal with. And so a lot of these guys, they're eating junk all the time. That's kind of their, they've got their comfort food or whatever, and it's causing health problems. And these, they're getting pretty messed up from this stuff. It's very important that you stay healthy for a lot of reasons. And a lot of people, when they start getting all goofed up in their diet, lack of exercise and things, it starts affecting them emotionally. And exercising, it does produce endorphins and things like that. It does make you feel good. And it is a good, healthy high that you can have. And not enough people are taking advantage of that. And, sometimes maybe guys, what they need to do, you need to let out some frustration, go get a punching bag and go beat the tar out of that thing. Guys need to burn off some steam sometimes. So, I think the lack of physical activity is really causing things. I think that affects men a lot when it comes to several things, including anger. I think another problem too, and I don't want to say a whole lot about this too, but bad physical relationships between husband and wives, that can affect things, and that can affect men in a negative way. And you need to make sure that you and your wife, you have a good relationship, and do what married people are supposed to do. That's good for you emotionally and mentally, and there's a lot of good things that come with that. And there's a lot of, I think, frustration that guys have, because that part of their life is not going well. I know that's a struggle for single guys a lot of times because they're not married. I understand that. You guys are going to have to do even more stuff to go, just burn off some steam. And but a lot of times these things, they start affecting men, and it manifests itself in anger. But sometimes it's the job situation. Some jobs are very physically demanding that can really, take a toll on somebody physically, mentally, emotionally. Some are emotionally draining. If you work in a bad environment, you're just constantly dealing with idiots, and you have a high stress job, that's going to affect things. It's not okay for you to be angry all the time and taking your anger out on other people. If it is that job, you might want to look and you say, I'm not cut out for this kind of work, because I can't live angry all the time. Don't just go quit your job like some people do, but either figure out how to make it work and how to make it better, or find something different, because you being a monster is not okay. Sometimes, just marriage, family problems, that causes a lot of problems. There's just a lot of stress going on in the house. That's why you got to keep your marriage strong. That's why you got to keep your family strong. These are responsibilities, things that we're required to do. And when we're not getting those things done, or we're not doing them well, we're going to feel it. It's going to cause problems. A lot of anger problems are just due to frustration because, as men, we feel like, we want to have control of things and control of the situation. And when things kind of get out of our control, we get behind on our finances, we're struggling financially, when things aren't going well in the job, the marriage, or whatever, it causes frustration because we all want order in our life. But if you're frustrated, if you're stressed out because things are out of order, the solution is not going and drinking a beer. The solution is not, taking a pill. The solution is getting these things in order. Because if you don't get them in order, you're going to have problems. Stress causes a lot of issues. It causes a lot of physical problems. Stress, it will cause physical problems that will turn into pain, which will make you angry. You're not going to sleep as well. When people aren't getting enough sleep, they get crabby. So there's a lot of things that we can have going wrong in our life that cause us to struggle with anger. And yes, it's usually a specific instance, a situation that causes us to blow our top. But in reality, the trouble we're getting into with our anger, it wasn't about that situation. It was about just the fact that we're letting our anger get out of control and we're struggling with anger, and it could be a whole host of reasons. So I just named several things that lead to anger, and none of these are circumstances, really. None of these are events. These aren't things somebody said. These are things that put us in a vulnerable situation. And so if you're somebody who's just struggling with anger all the time, I don't believe you have things happening every single day that's making you angry all the time, that justifies that anger. I think it's because you're probably choosing to live with a problem that you need to get fixed. And again, guys get made fun of for doing that kind of thing where they've got some kind of physical problem and they just refuse to go to the doctor. They refuse to get something looked at. And, we guys often do that. They just live with pain because, I don't know, are we that scared of doctors, or are we just so tough we can't go somewhere and admit, hey, I'm hurting right now. This is messing me up. I need to get this fixed. But I'm just telling you, it's not right for you to just try to tough it out. You need to try to get these problems fixed, because that anger, it's going to cause a lot of problems. And so I want to look at several verses about anger that we see in the Bible. I think we're just going to probably stay in the book of Proverbs. There's a lot in here. These are just universal truths these are timeless truths. And even though these things were written thousands of years ago, we can look today and so easily apply them to our life. But Proverbs 22:24 says, "Make no friendship with an angry man, and with a furious man thou shalt not go." Anger is something that's contagious. See, anger, it's not just about circumstances. If you are around people who behave, in violent ways, you're going to learn their ways. You're going to learn that's how you respond to things. Why is it that when people get mad, they all use the same hand gestures today? They all use the same cuss words today. You know what? Because it rubs off on each other. I mean, how often do you hear somebody when they get angry, say some kind of strong word that's unique? No, it's all the same stuff that you hear on television. And then you go to the factory, it's all the same stuff. People are all reacting in the same ways. Why? Because these things, they rub off. So if you're hanging out with somebody and they're constantly, every time they get mad about something, they're, dropping F-bombs and just cussing people out, they're flipping people off, they're just overreacting to things, that's probably how you're going to react. You're going to see that and think, this is the way I'm supposed to behave. This is the way man is supposed to act in these situations. And that's not right. These are not the way to deal with things. So, be careful who you hang around, because again, anger is not about the circumstance. It's about who you're hanging out with. And so, because anger is contagious. Proverbs 21:19 says, "It is better to dwell in the wilderness than with a contentious and angry woman." And all the men say amen. And it's true. Proverbs 25:24, "It is better to dwell in the corner of the housetop than with a brawling woman and in a wide house. Why is this? See, this is why it's not okay for you to just, endure your anger and to have that anger. No, your anger makes everyone else miserable. Your anger that you have is going to affect other people. So you know what? You need to chill out. And then nobody's going to like you. And then you're going to get angry about that. Nobody's going to want to have anything to do with you. And you're going to be throwing a big fit. But, nobody wants to be around angry people. The only time I've ever enjoyed being around angry people is, because I just want to watch the show. These are people that you don't care. When you like seeing somebody angry, it's because you don't care about that person, and you just like watching them lose it. You like watching them flip out. And I've known people, I've worked with people that were kind of entertaining when they were angry, as long as you weren't the one they were angry at. And because it was just funny to watch a grown man throw a fit. But let me tell you, when it comes to somebody that you love, that you care about, a friend, a family member, nobody wants to see that. And nobody wants to live with that person. So don't you be that person. So you will take away the joy from people. And so this verse is about a woman. And yeah, angry women are not fun. But you know what? I don't think angry men are either. I don't believe that at all. Proverbs 29:22 says, an angry man stirreth up strife, and a furious man aboundeth in transgression. People who are angry want everyone else to be angry with them. So what do? They stir up strife. They get other people angry. Again, it's contagious. It's what they do. And so now not only are you sinning when you're angry, but if you're that person that just won't get it fixed, you know what you're going to do? You're going to cause other people to sin too, while you're going out and getting other people stirred up, getting them angry. And that's not what we're supposed to do. Proverbs 15:1 says, a soft answer turneth away wrath, but grievous words stir up anger. So there's a way you can de-escalate situations, and there's a way you can escalate a situation. I'm always impressed. When I watch videos with cops, I'm always impressed with the guys that are really good at just calling people down and de-escalating situations. I always have a lot of respect for people like that, and I don't have respect for the cops that just go and escalate the situation. And I've seen that before, where they've handled things really bad, and obviously the person that's doing wrong and flipping out, they're ultimately at fault. But it makes me feel good when you see people who are supposed to protect and serve, causing people to sin less, getting them to calm down. I watched a situation in our local area a year or so ago where somebody filmed one of the cops in our areas, and he very impressively de-escalated the situation. I mean, when I saw that, it made me feel good. I'm like, all right, I'm glad we have cops like that around here, because it was a situation that easily could have turned ugly. But that cop, he handled it very well and caused less trouble as a result of it. And I think all of us ought to try to be that way. We ought to try to be people who are able to calm things down, and that are able to, make there be less anger. And we all know how to do it. I think that's something too, we all, especially too, if you are an angry person, we instinctively know how to push the buttons and everything. And sometimes it's hard not to do that, especially when you want to see a show, but that's not good. We shouldn't manipulate people's emotions, just to see a show. That's not good. Proverbs 15:18 says, a wrathful man stirreth up strife, but he that is slow to anger appeaseth strife. So that's what we need to be shooting for. We need to be shooting for a world where there's less anger. And even in areas where there's supposed to be anger, we need to learn how to show people the proper way to deal with it, and how to actually, use the righteous anger to motivate us to do right. But sometimes we're so sinful, even when we have anger about something that should make us angry, we can still sin if we're not careful. And that's why we've got to make sure, we understand the danger of anger. It's kind of like a gun rights thing, okay? I believe in gun rights. I believe in the Second Amendment. But I also believe that, when you have a firearm, you're responsible for what happens with it. And because it's a very dangerous thing, I think you need to treat it with care and respect, and you can recognize things that could potentially happen if you're not careful with it and if you don't handle it properly. And it's the same thing with anger. The Bible gives us the right to be angry in certain things, but it does not give us the right to sin in that anger. And so since man is so prone to sin to begin with, and especially when we're in a state of anger, we need to make sure that we are very disciplined when it comes to it. And we've got to be smart enough to know that, maybe I shouldn't watch the news tonight because it just makes me angry. Maybe I should just stay away from this person because they make me angry. And it's common sense. And I think we need to do that. A few more scriptures on this. Proverbs 16, verse 32 says, "He that is slow to anger is better than the mighty, and he that ruleth his spirit than he that taketh the city." So somebody who's slow to anger, okay? And I think that's the key right there is, even if it you're slow to anger. I think anytime you're in a state of anger, you're very prone to sin. But when you're slow to it, when you don't just immediately react, that's when you're most likely to not do something stupid. And so I think that's a key there, being just slow to anger. Do not react. Do not do exactly what you feel like doing at that moment. Do not say what you feel like saying at that moment. You've got to learn to just kind of walk it off, count to 10, sleep on it, whatever you have to do, because again, that's just wisdom. Most things that we regret in our life, are things that we did in a moment of anger. There's people today that are probably, I'm sure sitting in prison who did something in a moment of rage that they immediately regretted and that they would probably never do again. But you know what? If they did it, I think they need to, pay the consequences of their crime. Because even though it was done in anger and it kind of took over, it was their problem. It was their fault for not managing it. And if we don't manage these things, it's going to manage us. It's going to control us. And we can't let that happen. And it takes a strong person to keep that under control. He that is slow to anger is better than the mighty. You're stronger than one that takes a city because you have control over yourself. That is a very important thing. So people who can control anger, they're powerful people. Proverbs 19:11 says, "The discretion of man deferreth his anger, and it is his glory to pass over a transgression." And so again, we're deferring that anger. What we're doing, we're kind of spacing out. We're taking our time. Why? Because we're trying to avoid a transgression. Hey, last time I immediately reacted to something that made me upset, I regret it. I still regret it. I made all these mistakes. I wish I'd have slept on it. I wish I'd have taken one day. I'd have handled it a lot differently. That right there, that's discretion. And the other angry man, a lot of times they're going to push you. They're going to prod you. Do something now. You're a wimp if you don't do something. Don't be so passive. No, use discretion, and it's okay, especially if you're somebody who has a history of making a lot of really big mistakes in a moment of anger. It's okay for you to just sometimes say, you know what? I can't deal with this right now. I'm going to give myself a day. I'm going to give myself a week. I don't think it's wrong to do that. And, there are sometimes there's things that we need to deal with immediately, but, and it would probably be best if it was dealt with immediately. But, sometimes you need to say, I'm in no position to deal with this right now. And again, because you're somebody who, you struggle with anger, you've got to manage that thing. You've got to control it. And it's just a responsible thing to do. And unfortunately, not many people do it. It's kind of like, everybody just hopes that the slogan, don't drink and drive, is going to cause people to be responsible enough while they're under the influence of alcohol to not get behind the wheel of a car. And, some of those slogans and things, maybe they register in people's brains enough that it does deter them. It does stop them. I don't know. Thankfully, I don't know what that's like. But the thing is, I do know what it's like to be angry. And I don't always think rationally when I'm angry. And so, as a result of that, I put safeguards, and I sometimes do. I let a lot of time pass before I act on things. And, and there's been times where my lack of activity in reacting to certain things, has upset people and, caused them to, question my judgment and things. But, I just know myself. And I'm not super impressed with my performance when it comes, when I'm in a state of anger. So you got to take time. That's wisdom. Use discretion in that area. You might be somebody who you do fine when you're angry. You might, there's some people, they're so passive, they're passive to a fault that, they might need to act when they're angry so they'll finally do something. It depends on who you are. You've got to know yourself. You've got to know, your strengths and your weaknesses. Proverbs 14:17 says, "He that is soon angry dealeth foolishly, and a man of wicked devices is hated." So that person who's opposite of slow to anger, who's quick to anger, that guy that just gets angry like that just blows his top so quick, people like that do dumb things. They deal foolishly. They make dumb mistakes. That's why, you don't want to be that guy in the warehouse that just walks off the job. Never walk off the job. Never do that. I remember when I used to work at the distribution center in Spring Valley, it was a long walk back to my area, and every morning when I'd go walking in there, I would just sometimes imagine just turning around and just walking out. And I remember thinking how good it would feel to just turn around and walk out and never go back. But you know what? I was like, I can't do that because, I need this job right now. And even when it came time where I was able to quit, I gave them, at that time, I gave them 4 weeks notice. I knew a month ahead of time when I was going to quit. I gave them 4 weeks. And I remember all those mornings I was going in there and I was thinking, man, I don't have to have this job anymore. I could finally live this fantasy and just turn around and walk out and never come back. But you know what? I didn't, because it just wasn't the right thing to do. And I thought, what if one of these days I need a job here again? And fast forward 7 or 8 years later, I did need to get a job after I'd started the church here at another Walmart distribution center. And if I'd have had walking off the job on my record, they might not have wanted to hire me. But when they did my final paperwork when I left, I remember the manager, he did a thing on there where he specifically marked something that they recommend that they rehire me because I was a good worker, and I could have thrown that all away by ending bad. Even though I had 5 years where I had a good performance there, I could have thrown it all away in one day if I'd have wanted to, but I didn't, and it ended up paying off later when I needed to get a job there. So just don't do those things that you feel like doing. While they will feel good at that moment, you're going to regret it later. And so many people have just really hurt their future. They've lost opportunities because they acted in anger. They dealt foolishly. And why? And their problem, soon angry. They went into work that day, no intention of quitting, and literally in one day, I'm done. You can't make decisions like that quick. That's not good. You're going to regret that. Proverbs 20 verse 2 says, the fear of a king is as the roaring of a lion. Whoso provoketh him to anger sinneth against his own soul. So be careful who you make angry. Because again, people aren't supposed to do bad things ever. People aren't supposed to sin. But you know what? When people are angry, they usually sin. And here it's talking about, making a king angry. You provoke a king, he's got a lot of power to do a lot of damage. You say, well, he shouldn't do that. Yeah, but he might do that. And guess who's going to be the one that gets hurt? You are. So be careful provoking people to anger. I mean, yeah, you'll have that on him. You'll have this offense against him. But he's still going to be the king. He's still got more power than you. Don't do things like that. Don't go out walking the streets provoking people to beat you up. They shouldn't beat you up, but you provoke them, they might. They might do the wrong thing. Somebody might punch you. Somebody might shoot you. When you're out driving on the road, don't provoke people. Don't cut people off. Don't do things that irritate other drivers. And if you do on accident, you mess up, and then they give you a dirty look and they flip you off, don't flip them off back. Just motion that you're sorry. That calms people down a lot when you do just that one thing. But you say, well, they just need to cool it. Well, yeah, they probably should. But you push them, they might resort to road rage. And then, who knows, you might even get yourself killed. And yeah, they were wrong for killing you, and they're probably going to go to prison for it, but you're still dead. So don't make people angry. Try to calm things down. Try not to add to all the problems that are in the world. And again, especially when it comes to powerful people, whether it be, your employer, be careful with that. It's going to, you're going to hurt yourself in doing that. And yeah, he'll rack up sin for himself and God will judge him one of these days, but you're still going to suffer here on earth in the meantime because you were also wrong when you provoked him to anger. So don't do that. So anger is something too, you might think, well, as long as I don't punch somebody, as long as I don't commit this sin, you got a list of things that if you don't do them, you're in the clear. Well, here's the thing about anger is anger shows. If you've got anger in your heart, people are going to be able to tell. Proverbs 25:23 says, the north wind driveth away rain, so doth an angry countenance a backbiting tongue. And I like this verse for a lot of reasons. We can learn a lot from it. But, when somebody comes to you and is backbiting or gossiping, that should make you angry. Okay? And you know what? You ought to give them a really dirty look. And if you do, you know what it's going to do? It's going to drive them away. And that's exactly what you want to do to gossips and backbiters. You just want to drive them away, make an angry face. Don't look like you're eating it up and enjoying it when they come to you with the gossip. Make an angry face. And the truth is, an angry countenance, if you're angry, it's going to show in your countenance. We see in the Bible where Jacob's father-in-law, Laban, it talked about how he knew his father had a problem with me. He didn't say anything. There wasn't any specific action that he did, but he could see it in his countenance. It wasn't towards him like it was before. There was a time when, when he looked at him, there was a look of pleasure and love, but now he's looking at me differently. Laban's upset with me about something. I don't know what it is, but that alone caused Jacob to want to flee just because he could tell, and Laban was angry with him. And even though he didn't do anything, it showed in his countenance. And so, I'm not going to sit here and give you a whole list of things that you can and that you can't do when you're angry, to help you avoid all the problems that come with anger. Because the truth is, if that anger is there, if it is inside you, if you have anger in your heart towards someone, it's going to show in your face. It's going to be apparent. It's going to manifest itself in some way. And you don't want to do that. You don't want to drive people away. You don't want to, make people feel bad. If you have a problem with somebody, you shouldn't just give them dirty looks and things. You should actually talk to them about it. And if they're in the wrong, confront them about it. Don't just give them the silent treatment and give them attitude. And because a lot of times too, they might not even know what they did wrong. Maybe they did something wrong, but maybe they don't realize it. You're not going to know. So anyway, either way, you just sitting around stewing about it, it's ultimately going to affect you. And yes, you're going to affect other people in a negative way too, but it's not fair to do it that way. That is not how we have been called to deal with things when we have a problem with somebody, to just give them attitude, give them the silent treatment, give them dirty looks. No, you need to go, and if your brother has aught against you, you need to go and try to get reconciled with your brother. That's what should be done. That's the right way to do things. And so, again, there are some things that should make us angry. I can't stress that enough. I am often bothered by things that do not make people angry. But the key is just not letting anger control you. That's the key. And different people are going to respond different when it comes to all these things. Some people are way better at controlling and containing their anger than other people. Some people, it takes a lot to get them angry. Some people, it takes them very little to get angry. But I'm telling you, if you let these things control you, you'll blame it on circumstances all the time. Well, I'm angry because my boss is an idiot. I'm angry because this person at work did this. I'm angry at my wife because she said this or she did whatever. But no, it's not that. Okay? No, you've got a deeper problem, and it very well could be this anger that you're dealing with. It's a side effect of something else that's a real problem. It's a legitimate thing. Again, if you're in pain, I think you're going to have an attitude. Have you ever been there before when you got hurt, you got knocked down or something, and you're just kind of laying there in pain, just kind of waiting for it to pass? And then you have somebody stand over you. Okay? Are you okay? Are you okay? And they're just doing it because they're concerned. But what do you typically do in that situation? I'm fine. You yell, you might yell at him. You kind of lash out in that moment because you're just in pain. You're trying to ride it out. Okay? And obviously, that's not the way to react. They weren't trying to hurt you. They were concerned. That was why they kept asking you that. But at the same time, you didn't mean to. You were hurting. So if you've got some kind of health problem that's causing that, you need to see if you can figure out what that is and take care of it. And maybe you've got a problem that there's nothing that can be done about it. But that doesn't give you the right to sin. So you're somebody that might have to do even more. You have to put even more safeguards in your life because of the fact that you've got these things working against you that make you much more prone to anger. And just because you've got some kind of physical condition, it does not make you exempt from certain sins. And so we actually had a guy who came to the church several years ago who you could tell was pretty crazy looking. And there were several things that came up when he was here. We had a lot of concerns about him, but long story short, I was gonna go visit him and talk with him, and he was in his 20s but still living with his mom. And I remember I got a phone call from his mom because he had gotten in trouble. He had to go to court for something, and whenever you go into the courthouse, they've got the officer there who that runs a metal detector and everything. And something happened, and he got in a conflict with him and got in a bit of argument and had an ambulance come take him to the hospital because he's got all these anger issues. So then the guy called me up, and he was telling me about all his anger issues, and he's just talking about it all like, there's nothing I can do about it. He's like, I get in fights with people all the time, but it's not my fault because I have, and he's named off all these letters that he has and conditions that he has. And I just told him, so listen, you can't get in fights with people at our church. He's like, well, I can't help it. I'm bipolar. I've got this. I've got that. I said, I understand that, but I told him, I said, you can't fight with people in our church. That is not okay. That is not acceptable. And he's like, he's like, you don't understand. It's because people do things to make me mad. And I told him, I said, listen, nobody is going to do anything to you at our church that is going to be worthy of them getting in a fight with them. Okay. If you've got all these problems, I can't tell you that nobody's ever going to aggravate you or upset you in some way. But I'm just telling you, there will be no situation where it will be okay for you to get in a fight with somebody in our church. And I said, and if you can't keep this under control, you're just not going to be able to come. And his mom got super mad at me for that, and they never came back. But, say he's got a disability. I don't care. You can't beat people up just because they irritated you. That's not okay. If you're that out of control, then you shouldn't be around. You shouldn't be in a place with civilized people. You shouldn't be in a place where there's children present, because sometimes kids get annoying, and we don't need once you're going and kicking a kid down the stairs or something. That's insane. You're not exempt from sins. You're still sinning no matter what you've been diagnosed with. So the thing is, you've either got to fix the problem, or you're going to have to change the way you live. And the solution can't just be, let's keep putting people on meds that are just removing their manliness. And I'm afraid that's a lot of what we're doing. We're just demasculinizing, and I don't even know if that's a word, men today. And that is not the solution. Guys, yeah, we're always going to be a little more prone to violence than women are, because we're men. It's kind of what we're made out of. We are the stronger vessel. So we are capable of doing more damage, but that does not give us an excuse. We have to control it. And this is something that many men struggle with. And so hopefully, if these scriptures don't help you, the book of Proverbs, anytime you're struggling with anger, go read some stuff in the book of Proverbs. That's going to help you out a lot. But just consider, think about that for a little bit. If you're somebody who you've got a real anger problem, especially you've been diagnosed with something, ask yourself, is this anger a side effect of a different problem? Don't blame it on a circumstance. Is it a side effect of another problem? And then deal with that problem. Take care of it so you can live a normal and peaceful life and not be getting yourself in trouble all the time. So anyway, I'm going to close that. Appreciate everyone joining Captain Commando. This video series has been super helpful. I appreciate that. That's the goal, just trying to help men on some of these basic areas, because we all kind of have a lot of the same problems. Old Baptist Temple, Pastor Randall, talk about anger management. I just came here from listening to the Catholic Catechism. Oh, that should make you angry. But it's not an excuse for you to sin, Pastor. So just, be angry and sin not. And yeah, you go, you hear preachers preaching false doctrine. I hope it raises your blood pressure. I just hope you don't sin after that. So anyway, appreciate y'all listening, and thank you all. And we will, Lord willing, be back next week. So God bless you. We'll see y'all later.